Welcome to the afternoon of the Creator Lab. We have an amazing set of content up here. We're going to be talking about everything from legal to building and selling your 9-figure creator business, and clipping and so many other things. But before we get started with all that, we're going to talk about how you build and scale your creator business, how you take it from just somebody with a camera going, don't forget to subscribe, like, and follow, to somebody who's got 100 employees and has 5 different crews running around making content every single day. So how do you evolve from content to sustainable business? That's where we're going to go with this. How do you think about building long-term value? How do you think about ownable IP where it's not you in front of the camera? So maybe you can take a break, go to sleep, take a vacation. That helps. So we've got representatives from 2 of the biggest creator media companies, creator channels, creator people building huge studios, building lots of content. One from Dhar, Mann, who is more around narrative content and feel good stuff and things you just want to watch. And then another person here from Jesser, which is more on the sports side, on the basketball side, on building that narrative out. So please welcome up here, and I'm going to stay and moderate, so you got to keep listening to me, Toni Gray, head of production from Dhar Mann Studios, and Ben Harris, director of strategy and operations from Jesser. Give him a big hand. Come on up, guys. All right. I get to change mics too. So thank you guys for joining. This is awesome. Toni, I'm going to start out with you. You're kind of more like a traditional studio than a creator studio in many ways. You come from traditional. You're working with a lot of people who are on the creator side. Talk about what you changed as you came in and what you had to change to take this more creator driven operation to operate more like, maybe a little bit more like some of the older media companies that you'd worked at.
I think the first thing I learned was to unlearn everything that I knew from the traditional television space. So I spent about 20 years in that space in the largest studios, MGM, Mark Burnett, Fremantle, did all the big shiny shows. And then when I came into the creator world, I was like, oh, this doesn't work anymore. So I had to kind of like reset my mind, listen to them, figure out how to do that type of space much different than we did in traditional television.
And Ben, you were with Jesser, who is the face of the channel and the business, but you started out with him at the beginning. So you've seen it from just a camera and a guy with no microphones, as you were just telling me, to now this huge production company building all this stuff. So what was it like when there was that shift from it being just creators getting out there and posting versus now we're like a real business? And how did that transition happen?
Yeah, I think the transition happens a little bit out of necessity, where at first it's one person who can do all the filming, all the editing, all the like titles, thumbnail ideation, and that's Jesse. And then you get to a certain point where you've scaled enough that you need others ideating for you. You need others editing for you. And if you want to pump out the level of content that we're doing, like we're doing 100 long form pieces of content this year.
100. So
YouTube,
that's 2 long forms a week.
2 long forms.
And by long form, you mean 20 minutes, 40 minutes,
an hour? 30 minutes.
30 minutes. Okay.
Is what our audience has an appetite for, though it varies obviously from 20 to about an hour, I would say is our range. When you're operating at that scale, and that's nowhere near even the scale of Dhar Mann and what Tony's operating at, you just need other people. Like Jesse himself can't do that all. And so as we've scaled up throughout, it's been like, the place where he is best and most valuable is on camera in front of the audience. And so he tries to build a team around him that does all the other stuff, the best editors in the market, the best ideators in the market, and you package that together to grow.
So Toni, contrast that with Dhar Mann, where he's not on camera.
No.
So talk about that and how that sort of evolved and how that's different. And maybe you guys can riff on some of the changes when the person running the company is in front of the camera versus he's more of the sort of just creative genius.
Yeah, so we do scripted content. Our content's anywhere from 22 to 25 minutes. We run about 9 crews a week.
Wait. 9 crews a week?
9 crews a week.
How many crews a week did you run at MGM? 1. Yeah. You were also Mr. Beast doing Beast Games. How many crews there?
The crew at Mr. Beast was 1,200 crew per day.
Woo! Okay, so let's get back to Dhar Mann. Yeah. So 9.
Yeah.
9 crews.
9 crews at the same time. We're a very small team. Here we go. They're very, very scrappy. We have a party of 5 that's out there. Ruben is sitting in the chair. He's our co-creator and our show writer for Facebook, which basically is a whole nother platform that we also do. And Facebook right now is superseding the YouTube platform.
Yeah. And I know Sean Atkins, your president, was our CEO, was over at Jelly Smack, was a big part of that too. So he understands that really well.
Yeah.
So what's it like when Dhar comes up and says, oh, hey, we want to do this. And you're like, I don't know about that, versus Jesser coming up. Talk a little bit about that difference, if there's anything there.
So basically in the creator space, when Dhar comes up and says, I want to do that, we do that because we have the ability to do it. So in traditional television, if everybody, all of you guys who came from traditional television knows, like you have to go through copious notes and networks and budgets and stuff like that, where basically we can come up with an idea, ideate it, production shoot it, post it in about 30 days. We're reaching about 60-day cadence right now, which is kind of our sweet spot, but that's how fast we run. How fast are you guys running?
It's very similar. I would say like 30-day is our ideation and filming. And then to get to post, we allow for 45 generally. You guys do as well. I'm sure we dub all of our videos, which takes 15 days in and of itself. We dub in 20 different languages, 2 of them human, Spanish and Portuguese. We found like the most appetite for our basketball content in those languages and the rest using AI. But the dub human languages takes 15 days, the process we go through. And so it's a little bit longer timeline in post for us, but pre-production, the idea to making the shoot happen is like 30 days for us. Yeah.
Even the idea of scaling languages, I want to talk about that a minute. That's really interesting because 15 days seems like forever for a YouTube channel, right?
Yeah.
And you're only doing 2 that are actually human dubbing.
Yeah.
So how do you, do you have a big, do you want to shorten that window, I guess is the best way to put it? And how are you thinking about that?
Yeah, we would love to. And maybe we're just not working with the right post.
I have no idea.
The right dubbing folks.
It just surprises me that
it is a lot. I would say what's nice is most of our content is evergreen. So although we're sports creators, we focus on like spreading the joy of sport. We're not hyper competitive. We're not like reporters covering individual events where we would have to churn it really quickly. Like if we're covering the Super Bowl, like you'd want to get that up immediately. For us, it's more of like mini game content that kids can resonate with and have fun with. And so given it's evergreen, we can delay to post oftentimes. And we're ahead enough where that's okay. Like we've already filmed our next 2 months that we're posting on our 2 main channels. We filmed everything already. And so we get pretty ahead in our cycles.
So, and Toni, on your side, when you're doing that sort of post-production stuff, how long does it take for you? I mean, you're doing narrative, so it's not not timely either, but how do you think about working across multiple languages and bringing it in?
Yeah, so we obviously go to outside third-party companies that do our all of our dubbing for us, but we still keep it within our cadence. What's really incredible about us is we're audience-led. This is what I keep doing. Eat the mic. We're audience-led first, so we listen to our audience. So we basically are so back-to-back on how we publish, because if there's something that's not resonating with the audience, we're able to manipulate a new script coming out and change the content immediately to get it back out there. So our audience drives all of our writing and our content.
So Ben, when you, because you and Jesse were there building it from the beginning, what was the first early hire that you said, it's like, we need to hire somebody outside of our core group of trust? What was that early hire? Who was the first one, and how did that change sort of the velocity of building the business?
Yeah. So I would say as a early stage creator, you can do a lot with, even before hire, a phone, camera, and a mic. Like I would encourage the first purchase you should make would be a mic, because most phone cameras have great quality, but you can't fix bad audio. And like, if you're doing anything in public like that, like YouTube viewers will leave immediately if you don't have good audio. So even before hires, like that's what I would encourage. In terms of hires, I think a camera person is someone that could be good, but even maybe more important, something that people don't think about is outsourcing. Editing is important, because there's just very good, cheap editors on the market that can do it better and faster than most creators. And like thumbnails as well. So if you think about like the video editing, I think is something that a lot of people focus on, but the thumbnail, I would say, in the packaging of a video is just as, if not more important, as the actual content of that video. So if you're looking to like outsource something or hire someone, there's a lot of good thumbnail editors out there. You can just troll Twitter, or X, I guess now, looking for people, and you'll find relatively cheap folks to edit your thumbnails that I think will take your game to the next level. And it's important. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Toni, you came into Dharman relatively recently. So you came from Beast Games. I assume in many ways to sort of figure this whole production thing out and make it work better. Is that accurate?
I did the jump.
You did the job. So when you came in, what was the first thing you did to say, we need to make this a well-oiled machine, not what it's doing now? I am going to hire this person and maybe I might lay off these people over here. What were some of those things that you did to help scale that production side too?
I think at Dhar, we call him the adult of the creator space because he is like one of the most responsible ones. Creators are still learning to kind of find their sea legs and be, like I call them adulting. When I left linear television, basically they said it was like career suicide that I didn't like. Everybody was like, what are you doing going into this world? I went to Beast, which was a whole nother story. And that was insane. But finding like the connective tissue between traditional television into the creator space was incredible for me because I was so handcuffed throughout my entire career that the handcuffs were gone. And so going into Dhar, he already had such an incredible infrastructure. I was like, okay, we just need to put boundaries and bumpers on a lot of the things because they're a little wild, wild west. But as a lot of the larger networks are coming in, the Hulus, the Amazons, the Netflix, and they're coming to the creators to find content for them, they have to kind of put on their big boy pants and you have to kind of take some of that learnings from linear television and bring it back into that space with all of the legalities and things like that creators don't think about.
I want you each to walk me through your production pipeline. You touched a little bit on it 2 months, we're out shooting, but give us a real quick look at start with this, end with it in front of the camera, or end with it on screen and end up uploading it. Just what are the highlight steps right now? And Ben, do you want to start with that?
Yeah. So I think first for us, it's establishing the publishing cadence. So we know going into the year we got in a room, we said we want to put out 100 videos across our main channel and our second channel original content this year. Then it becomes, okay, what do we want to fill that out with? And we actually did the attempt this year in early January of like, let's try to fill the entire calendar year with the certain types of videos we want, like what the title would be, what the thumbnail would be. There's different buckets that we have for our videos, right? Some are like competitions. Some are more like NBA player, superstar focused. Some are soccer content we've been getting into more. So we say we want X amount of videos of each of those buckets. Here's how we're going to space them out. Here's the titles that we're going for. Based off of that, then we set like timelines on when we script things and like when we actually write out scripts, when we need external talent, when we reach out to the talent. And it's generally, I would say about that process starts 30 days ahead of filming where we try to like start that process. That we have a development team of 4 doing that work. It then gets passed to the production team. There's a big back and forth between dev and production. And I think this is really important and something that we set up well of like the development team's whole job is like think super ambitious. Like we want to play basketball on the moon. And they go to the production team and say that. And the production team says, the hell are you talking about basketball on the moon? Are you kidding me? No, that's not going to happen. And they say, okay, is there a zero gravity chamber we can do on Earth that would like mimic that? Right. And so there's a whole discussion there that takes a few days. Production then puts it into swing. They get the scripts, let's say 15 days in advance, where they're putting stuff together, doing any builds that are needed, working with brands. If it's a branded shoot, they put on the shoot. Usually it's 1 to 2 day shoots for us. And then it goes into post, which takes, generally we allow for 45 days. It can get done quicker, but 45-day timeline. And then it's uploaded on our channels.
And Toni, what about you? When you lay out your production process, talk a little bit about where it might deviate and why you think that's the case. Or maybe you guys can have a little debate on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're very similar in that, like we figure out what the cadence is, and the cadence right now is around 317 videos. That's between YouTube and Facebook. Dropping that. Our publishing is anywhere from 30 to 60 days. We play around with that as well because we can script stuff and we always want to stay relevant and we always want to be connected to our audience that we have. So we're able to pivot depending on like what's going on in the world or what's happening. One of the interesting things that we just touched on a little bit is like everybody wants to talk about AI, right? So we use AI as a tool to help us be better and be more effective. But our audience right now loves the AI in a very like simple form, but they don't want it replaced with human connection. So even though we tried to go there, I feel like that generation, because we're a little bit of a younger generation and we teach stories and we talk about real feel life empowering moments in people's lives, that they want a real person to play that and not an AI because the world is so fractured right now. And so at Dhar Mann, what we're trying to do is bring collective collaboration around like cross viewership again. Like if you remember back in the days where you used to go to someone's house and watch Bachelor or Survivor or whatever, and you'd have all your friends over, that's gone. And there's a real need for that co-viewership again between parents, grandparents, and kids.
Maybe one thing too that
Yeah.
Toni touched on a while back that I think is important too in the creative process is YouTube specifically gives a really good feedback mechanism, right? Facebook does as well. So we plan out the whole year, but most of the second half of the year has changed already because like we get feedback. We're always looking at the analytics dashboard of what's working, what isn't working, where do viewers drop off in retention, what type of titles, what content do they want from us? And I think with some of the other bigger, like we syndicate on Hulu and other platforms, so we just don't get that information. Where YouTube, you can easily, even if you're a small creator, go in and cater your content towards what's working best and test and learn. And I think that's a really important thing that we're constantly doing. And I know Toni touched on as well.
Yeah. So neither of you mentioned money, like sponsorships and brands and integrations are a big part of what a lot of people do on YouTube and a big driver of a lot of revenue. How do brands get involved and how do you work through what, you talked about dev and the conflict between dev and production, but what about the conflict between the sponsor guy who just sold, a huge integration for Versa TV and they come up and they're like, we want to do this. And like, we can't do that. Talk about how that happens. So I'm going to start with you, Toni. Talk about how sales gets involved in maybe some of the tensions and the way you work through them.
Yeah, so sales is very, very new for Dhar Mann. Basically, when I walked into Dhar Mann Studios, we have 125,000 square feet of space with like 63 tangible sets that can go to 93 as we turn them out. And we have a whole entire in-house team. We have set, we have props, we have everything. So I walk in and I walk into all of these multiple sets in the stores and I was like, this is like Target. Where did all this stuff come from? And they were like, we went to Target and bought it. And I was like, what are you talking about? We could put brands in here and it will all be free. But Dhar was so used to being an individual by himself that he created the entire studio within himself. So we just started bringing brands. And like you said, we have Adobe as a brand. We have NFL as a brand now. And they are starting to become more and more in our world, but we still want to hold on to who we are because if they don't align with what we are, then we don't go there.
So brands don't get involved in the creative process at all.
No, we run it right now.
We run it right now. Yeah. How about you? Talk about brands and how they integrate.
Yeah, they definitely. I was at first the studio that Toni was talking about. It's like I was lucky enough to get a tour from Ruben. It's like the Universal Studios tour. It's like you're on it's incredible what they've built. It's a real Hollywood movie set to the max. So really, really impressive scale. In terms of brands for us, I would say they're a little bit more involved. So we've really this year ramped up our involvement with brand, and we're in unscripted sports on YouTube, which are three of the hottest buzzwords right now. It's a good place to be for brands, and like brands have wanted to be with us. We probably give a little bit more creative control and like bringing life to their vision. But in the same light, we only work with brands where we feel like it's a real partnership and that like they're providing us value. So a good example is like we're doing a deal with ESPN where we're covering El Clasico, which is we're starting doing more in soccer, the Madrid-Barcelona game this year. And like part of the reason why we did that is because we then get access to that event and like access to players like Lamine Yamal through ESPN. And so I think for us, it's like we view it as if they enable better content, we'll partner with the brand and the money's great and help sustain us. But there has to be some give or something that makes it make sense for us to partner with them now.
Yeah, my sense is, and the creators that I've worked with at smaller levels, is that there's not that much strategic planning that happens. There's not that much, after my next shoot. You mentioned the fact that you do some planning in the beginning of the year and then it changes. But I'm interested on both of your sides. Is it and I'm going to start with you, Ben, because you brought this up. You talked about it. Is it an annual planning that just gets changed as the year go on? Or do you do like planning for content every quarter? What does that planning cycle look like?
Yeah. So this year, I think was the first year where we really did an annual planning or tried to do the exercise of like, what does the full year look like? And maybe it's the annual planning was me, Jesse, Johnny, who's our head of law enforcement, Gavin, who's our head of post, in a room for 8 hours on a Saturday, just looking at our analytics, going through, and we had obviously prepared for it beforehand, but it was really just 4 guys in a room hunkering down and being like, all right, what does the year look like? So not a huge scientific exercise. I would say then it shifts not only on a quarterly basis, but every day, right? It's subject to change where like we may get an opportunity like the El Clasico thing from ESPN that comes in and it's like, well, we're not turning that down. We're trying to be bigger in soccer. It doesn't make sense. So how does that fit in and what do we sub out? And so we're always as a dev team thinking like we have all our videos on the slate and every Monday we get together and we say, beat it. Who can beat that title? Like, here's the next 4 titles you're scripting. If you have a better title or thumbnail idea, pitch it to us, beat it. It's always open. Like anyone can cook, anyone can have good ideas. And so we really open it up. Yeah.
So Toni, what's that cycle look like over at Dhar, Mann? Annual planning, quarterly planning, weekly planning. I know you've been recently introduced to the world of KPIs and OKRs and things like that. But what is that planning cycle like? And, maybe touch a little bit of like, when I got here, it was this, I want it to be this, and here's where we are now.
I think it goes back to the whole thing, unlearn. Yeah. So obviously we want to have boundaries. We want to have procedures. We want to work at a higher cadence, all of that stuff. But we do shift and change all the time because we'll write up into a certain point, but we don't want to be so far ahead because like I said, we're creator and audience led first. So like we want to know when we can pivot and change and we don't want to write too ahead because then it just sits on the shelf and we're not going to produce it if it's not resonating with our audience. So we do morph so quickly. And I think what happens in the creator world is like, you don't have a large production company or entity or a network telling you what you can and can't do. So we can change that day, whatever we want to do. Sometimes I'll just come back to the studio after a long weekend and say what crazy thing happened to me. Like I locked myself out of the car because of a Tesla and I didn't charge my phone. And that video will become viral literally within 30 days because it will hit a Facebook or it'll hit a platform where, everyone does that. They won't admit to it.
I have a Tesla. I do that.
Yeah. See, you know what I'm talking about. So it's like, it's so refreshing to be able to be in a space where it really is where creative comes to live.
Can I just tell you my tip for you, by the way, so that doesn't happen?
Going to be a Tesla tip.
I'm going to give you a Tesla tip. Always carry the key, even if you're in Vegas, far away from your car. Okay. So quick question for you. You were on Beast Games, the first version, which is the one, if you followed it, there were some issues getting it going. Any lessons from Beast Games that when you went through that, you brought to Dhar, Mann and that have really helped?
Yeah. So like coming directly out of linear into that 4 weeks later, it was insane because they were a true creator that had never morphed into like that type of space. And we went into it with Amazon. So you had to be on your best behavior. And it was like, not only was it creator versus traditional television in that platform, but it started with 2,000 contestants. And then we had 1,200 that flew to Canada. It was a little bit of the wild, wild west because it was the first platform of its type that basically morphed together. And what we're seeing more and more are these creators partnering up with the Hulus, the Amazons, the Netflix, all of them, because they're looking for that content. Like for us, Beast Games dropped and had 50 million views instantly. At Dhar, Mann, we have about 16 billion views on all the platforms right now, and we have 170 million followers, and we're constantly growing, and we're constantly morphing into other areas besides just your typical YouTube and Facebook platforms.
Ben, on this stage a year ago, we had Sean from Sean Does Magic. I don't know if you guys remember that. I interviewed him. He was telling me all about going and playing basketball with Jesser. I know you do a lot of stuff with other creators. You build a community of other creators. You all hang out, play basketball together, bring them into things. How do you think about working with other creators and collabing like that as a way to grow and as a way to build things out?
Yeah, I mean, I think we think about it as just that, a way to grow. I think part of it is just fun for us too. When we have a guy like Sean who is open to being in our videos and just a fun presence to have, who's different, candidly, than like anyone in our core crew. So he also adds value in that way, not only from his different audience, but like just different in terms of personality. Like something we try to focus on with the cast of characters that we're building is that everyone fills their own role and has their own personality. And like, it's tougher within sports where you're all competing oftentimes, but we still want like differentiation. We want every type of audience member to feel like they see themselves in someone on the cast. And so bringing in other people for videos helps with that definitely, and people outside of our sphere. I think in terms of growing audience too, we view it as a little bit like, and I think everyone in the YouTube community is pretty open, shares their learnings and insights and like shares talent as well. And rising tide lifts all ships. And like Jesse's done a number of, like he was in a Nick Giovanni video recently, just filmed that's going to come out, who's collabs with all types of YouTubers. He was in recently a Zach King, his next thing that has featuring Jesse in it. And so like we also Jesse loves being in other people's content, not only for our own brand awareness, but it's just fun to be like people are building very cool, distinct things on YouTube. But also for us, it's like, yeah, it grows our audience. The collab post feature now on YouTube is something we've used a lot to help grow our audience and like not take from others, but like we think that we have a lot of content that's evergreen and like a lot of different people will like, and sports are global. So like, especially with other global sports creators is our next kind of person we're trying to target. So for World Cup, we're doing a lot of like collabs with other global sports creators to make that happen. Yeah.
All right. So
can I touch on that a little bit?
Do. Yeah.
So we found the same thing, right? So like in the linear television space, there was so much competition between production companies and networks, and you didn't really cross-pollinate. You either stayed in commercials or in film or in reality or in competition, and you really never could go into any of those other areas, which I'm noticing in the creator world, like we're all a party. And we want to empower each other. And so there's not that competition, because when you say creator space, it is 100% creator space.
So I want to shift gears a little bit. And as any creator business scales, most of them end up at a spot where they bring a president in, they bring a CEO in, somebody who has built businesses, scaled businesses in other places. And so Zach Miller came in over at Jesser, and Sean Atkins came in over at Dhar, Mann. I want to start off with you, Ben. When Zach came in and, he comes in and he's got ideas and he's coming in here to go, what did you do to learn and unlearn with him? And then what happens when he comes in and says, you should do it this way? And you're like, no.
Yeah. I mean, I think Zach, and as everyone else in the building, is great because very low ego and knows, like very smart, knows what he knows what he doesn't know. And so in terms of content stuff, he'll give his feedback, obviously, but he knows he's the unk in the room a little bit. Like he's not going to push too hard on like clipping and what we should do with clipping, because it's like, we got a 20-year-old who's running our clip farm. Right. And so part of it is like him adjusting, knowing what he knows. I think Jesse, again, driving the business and like also driving the content side of things, helps with that as well. And like Jesse and Zach have a very good and healthy relationship in terms of like Zach keeps him in check, make sure we're financially all good. But like, if it works and there's a hypothesis, and Jesse and the team can lay out like why this makes sense to invest a certain amount of money in a riskier type of content, Zach's all for it. And he's like for taking that risk. And he then takes the learnings, goes through the executive dashboard, right? And is able to make informed decisions off of that to make a better decision next time. I think where it really comes in though, and where Zach, I think, has added a huge, tremendous amount of value to our company, is the build out of other adjacent businesses. So the content business is ripping, and it's been ripping. But we have an apparel brand that we use our content business to market and, market into. And that's super successful. Zach has done a great job of like molding that and helping grow that. Similarly, like we're launching 2 other brands this year, consumables food brand and a like kids sports brand that just makes sense in our ecosystem. And like having Zach oversee the full Jesser ecosystem, I think is something that's really useful. And like, we'll push back on how content is informed there, but kind of let him drive the general business development.
Yeah, your basketball business is off the rails. So it's so great to see. Toni, what do you say when Sean comes down and says, hey,
collab.
Yeah, you guys need to collab. You saw it here first. So what do you say when Sean Atkins comes in and says, you got to do it this way? And you're like, that's not the way it's going to happen. I used to work for Sean, by the way, so I can say that. What do you do?
That's not going to work.
Those exact words.
Yeah. You make a perfect point by bringing in the different entities that creator space doesn't have. So they're starting to bring in the heads of different departments like myself that can bring kind of like what we knew in a different stance into that world, and put, like I said, bumpers on, a little bit more procedural, making sure that like the liabilities across the board are, tucked in. You have clearances. You can't just drop 50 cents in your videos, you guys. So we are also like kind of parallel pathing, where we are jumping into a podcast with Dhar, and we are jumping into verticals now. So we're just launched a partnership with Holy Water and Fox. Most recently, microdramas.
We'll be talking about that with Scott Brown tomorrow right here because he just released a musical microdrama on stage tomorrow afternoon. Yeah. Thank you for letting me do that.
So that's a very new space for us as well. But we can change all the time. We'll go like, let's try 3-minute content. Let's try 5-minute. Let's go 8-minute. Let's go 12 minutes. Let's do longer content on YouTube. And if it doesn't work, we're just like, well, that didn't work. And then we turn around and do it, something differently.
We only have about a minute and a half left. I want to do a real quick lightning round. I'm going to ask you a question. Say a sentence or maybe a word and answer, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. So, Ben, I'm going to start with you. What are creators getting wrong about building a business? What's one thing they're getting wrong?
Consistency. I would say the sentence version is it takes a lot of time and effort to build it. And if you want it, you should go for it, but you got to post consistently. You have to build an audience. Like this is a business that you're trying to build. So it's not just sporadic once a week I'll post. It's like, you got to be on it. There was a while where Jesse was every day like posting content because he wanted to build his brand. And so it's a real commitment.
Toni, what about you? One thing creators are getting wrong, and with your lens of I've been in traditional media and I see what they got wrong, what's one thing you're seeing over on the creator space that they're getting wrong?
Trying to move too fast and not let things resonate.
And what do you do to fix that?
Try and let things resonate. They want to move so fast to go in. Oh, well, that didn't work. Well, you've only tried it for 3 weeks. Like, let it sit for a while. And I think that's where we start to lose focus because we just totally pivot. And it's almost like you have to turn off your brain and turn it back on again. And then that doesn't allow for like consistency throughout.
And what about you? What's your piece of advice for a creator who wants to move beyond just their comfort zone?
Packaging matters. And there's a lot of different things you can do within your comfort zone, but change the packaging slightly to incent more views. And if it's still a good video, it'll still resonate with everyone. So I think packaging is key.
All right. Package it up, scale, move, do those things. Great content here. Great stuff. Great advice from Toni Gray and Ben Harris. Give it up for them. Thank you very much.